And with that, I'm thrilled to introduce you to today's speaker, President of Association TV, Dan Stevens. Dan?
Thank you, Emily. I'm also joined by Randall Mauricio, Vice President of Client Success with Association TV, which is our trade name, and the company name is WorkerBee TV. Today we're going to talk. Oh, sorry, Randall.
Dan, sorry to interrupt. Just to say that I think maybe some of the guests that we have on the webinar today I may have met or may have met me during the Solutions Day if you all attended a couple of weeks ago in Chicago, which was a great event. And I would have been the fella with the equipment in the back with a ring light and a tripod that may have looked like I was taking a lot of selfies, but I wasn't. I was testing out in real life the actual solution and idea that we're sharing with you today.
Terrific. So virtual videographer, we're calling the next evolution in video filming and production. But I want to take a step back, and before we explain what, just talk about why. Our mission here is to make video profitable, purposeful, and predictable for associations. And ultimately that means helping you use video strategically. And when you do, it will improve engagement. And when you improve engagement, there's a direct correlation to increased retention, recruitment, and revenues, which is the lifeblood of all associations. So our commitment is to how do we drive down the cost and the complexity of video to the point where associations can afford to use video on a regular basis for information and updates, for news, for learning, and for, of course, communications and marketing, and advocacy as well. So today we're introducing this new service, Virtual Videographer, that can lower filming costs by up to 75%. And how do we do that? Well, first of all, we can turn an iPhone or an iPad or a computer now into a virtual videographer. And that way we can film anywhere in the world without having to leave our office. And we can film up to 4K footage. Recordings are not affected by Wi-Fi or internet quality. Today we're on Zoom, and when you're doing just PowerPoints, it's fine, but with audio and video for high quality production, you want to make sure that the internet is not an issue in degrading quality. And this also allows us to be reactive. By being able to use an app on an iPhone or an iPad or on a computer, when things need to be done real quickly, because no one has to travel, we can turn things around, plan things quickly, and capture moments that we can then use in video and downstream audio that are really important to either get out to our membership or to help with prospective membership.
And I would just add to that, Dan, the value of saving from effort or the time savings that you would incur. There was a few folks over at the .org event a couple of weeks ago that we were speaking with, and once they understood the value of this solution and this idea, they had paused and said, gee, just last week or 2 weeks ago, we were actually doing this internally. And it's one thing to connect and actually have a device that could record the video and audio, but one of the hurdles that they experienced firsthand was, well, how do I get that now to the production team? Or how do I take this footage that may be being captured in Europe and send it to Canada or to the US so that it can now be produced? And so that's when the light sparked for them, because in terms of the overall effort of, traditionally you'd have to get a hard drive or use Dropbox, all of this is actually done virtually, including the delivery and the sharing of the assets.
Yeah, in real time. Great. So this is how it works. You start with an app, and that app allows our remote crew to join and take over the filming and being that director on that shoot, capturing that content, and then, as mentioned, straight to the cloud, real time, like Randall was just sharing, so that it can be moved on to post-production very, very quickly. So
I brushed over that, and some of the instances that we had seen real life during Emily and Kevin's event was, and we were putting the solution to the test where I would actually interview some of the speakers, for example, and between the time of stopping the interview and walking from that location to the cocktail table. That footage was already being uploaded, and I would say less than 5 minutes, if that footage was already in hand and ready for production.
We'll need to learn more about the cocktail table later, Brett. Some of the key features. So this screen is kind of sharing an example of how the director can see the subject real time from their console. So this person might be staring at an iPhone right now. This happens to be Randall. And then along with the directors can be collaborators. So imagine that's someone from your association who wants to sit in on the shoot. Maybe they're even asking the interview questions. The subject can hear you, can see you, can talk to you, while the director is controlling the audio and the shoot and the exposure. So we can have up to 4 collaborators as either interviewers or observers. So I think of, high-risk situations. For example, we're filming an award winner in advance. We're going to launch it at our conference, and it just has to be right. And although the videographer might be a strong, person at operating a camera, they may not know the industry, or they may not know the questions to ask. And this allows you, without travel, to all be on the phone or device at that same time to make sure quality is there. For the subject, and maybe Randall, you've been the subject on this, maybe talk a little bit about some of the features that the subject gets to make sure everything goes well.
Yeah, it's really interesting because I've been on both sides. Like I mentioned, I've acted and served as the virtual videographer and director, but furthermore, we're going to actually show a video very shortly. But in that video, I'm actually acting and serving as the subject. And what a stark contrast. It was so easy because all I had to do was just listen for prompts, and the virtual videographer who I was connecting with, seeing on my iPhone, they were doing the heavy lifting. I was just being told what to do. And the moment a question was being asked, all I had to do was just answer it. Or if for whatever reason I did not feel comfortable answering a question or sharing information on a whim, there's even a teleprompter feature so that if I wanted to script or have bullet points of what I wanted to communicate, that is all available. So to wrap that all up, as an interview subject, very, very low risk, and made me feel at ease.
Yeah, thank you. And we have equipment and lighting packages to complement, any situation for interviews or for B-roll as needed. The little screenshot you're seeing here is one device. So one iPhone or one iPad or one computer being used in a shoot. We can actually have up to 4 simultaneously. So if we wanted to do a panel, the panel could all be in the same room, or they could all be in different cities, anywhere in the world. If we wanted to do a situation where it was like a round table or a Q&A, again with multiple people, could be recorded with multiple devices, and each of those devices can have collaborators and a director. So again, why tell you when we can show you that? Let's use the power of video. In this demo, you're going to see an example of what virtual videographer looks like to the person on the director side, but also what it looks like to the subject. So here we go.
Getting started with virtual videographer is easy. Use your own equipment or set up with one of our rental kits in just 10 minutes. We'll provide you with access to the app or web page. Simply enter the code provided and you're in. So once you're in, I have the ability to control the quality of the shot in various ways. Randall, could you just move back a little bit?
Sure. How's this?
Perfect. From here, I can set the focus. I can adjust the exposure, and I can test the audio levels to ensure that we're getting the best footage possible. We can add up to 4 collaborators to the session from your team or ours.
For example, I'm based out of Pennsylvania and joined the shoot to make sure it meets my project's requirements and matches our company's brand standards.
I'm located in Canada and will be acting as interviewer for this session. This is the view that collaborators see on their screen. Once I ask the question, our director, Adam, will hit record. The subject, Randall, will see a 3, 2, 1 countdown and then share his answer. So Randall, tell me more about virtual videographer.
Using virtual videographer is really easy. I get prompted before I provide any answers, and if I wanted to, there's even a teleprompter feature for any scripted filming.
Unique to virtual videographer, the file is recorded directly on the device and immediately transferred through the app. Once I click upload, it moves to the cloud and is removed from the phone. This way it doesn't take up any storage space on Randall's phone after the shoot. With virtual videographer, you can record up to 4 devices at once. For example, we can have a second shot of Randall for more options when editing, or add in other subjects for panel interviews. There are multiple view and setting options so that the director has control over the quality of the shoot. The experience is seamless and easy for the subjects involved. When a shoot is completed, the files are immediately available to our editing team or to share with the client as preview files. We look forward to working with you on your next filming project.
So hopefully that gave a good visual as to what the power of virtual videographer and how, without anyone having to leave their offices, we can film anywhere in the world. And getting started is very easy. You can use your own equipment. By own equipment, we're talking about a smartphone or an iPad, or iPhone, iPad, or laptop that has a good camera in it. And the accessories like the lighting ring that you saw, and a stand, and a good microphone, because audio is just as important. And if you don't have those devices, we can ship it to your location in advance for the shoot so that it's taken out of the box, set it up, and away you go.
And by the way, we really mean it when we say if you have your own equipment, absolutely, that works too. Any of these accessories and add-on equipment is not, it's totally universal. And so if you have your own tripod, as long as it could adapt to and comply with your smartphone or the iPhone that you're using, no issues at all. And if you have your own light, no problem at all. I think I share that because we don't want to leave the impression that there's a specific set or specific brand or type of equipment that needs to be used. It's totally universal.
Right. Like any good shoot, it requires a plan up front. We shoot all around the world using our own team and local videographers. And now virtual videographer gives us another option. But at the end of the day, you still need to plan for that shoot. So we have a planning meeting in advance so we understand the goals, who's going to play the interview role, and whether that's us or you, and so forth, so that when we're getting that recording, we know that we're complete. We're capturing everything for post-production. About 15 minutes before a shoot starts, the subject will set the equipment up. It's really simple. It usually takes about 5 to 10 minutes. And then 5 minutes before, they'll connect to the app from their phone, and all of us then are now connected and live, as you saw on the video. And then the remote director will guide the process from there so that everything, the lighting is right, the audio is right, the framing and the zoom is right, and of course the subject is ready for that interview, or potentially doing some B-roll around a location, a conference, whatever. Let's talk about the numbers. I mentioned earlier that you can save up to about 75%. For us, a shoot always starts with planning and ends with capturing the content, logging it such a way that you as an association can see the footage, can see the clips, all of the ums and ahs have been taken out, all of the wasted space is gone, so you can focus in and say, this is the content I want to use for post-production. So whether it's a traditional shoot or a virtual videographer, they follow the same steps: planning, sourcing and filming with a videographer either on site or virtually, having the right equipment that can handle 1080 or 4K. Now, obviously in virtual videographer, there's no transportation fees. No one has to drive to your office. No one has to park at the conference. No one has to get access. And capture and log is done real time, which is a real quality opportunity, because it allows us to, instead of seeing the footage 2-3 days later, if it's a lot of footage, we can see it while the interviewer is still there and make sure that we did capture everything and that the quality is right before we let that person go. If that's all we need, the typical cost for a half-day shoot is about $1,680, whereas a virtual videographer interview might be $544, even less if you have your own equipment.
That's right. And you know what, Dan, just yesterday I was on the phone with a partner of ours, and we're trying to schedule their very first virtual videographer shoot. And she was very vocal in saying, I'm very comfortable playing the role of interviewer. And so, and if that's the case, if you can either be there in person or log on virtually, then there's no need to tack on an additional crew. And so that 544 number would actually be less. And take it a step further, she had her own equipment, and so no need for us to ship her one of our kits. And so it was even less than that.
Yeah, which is great. So with the savings like this, our hope is that associations will look to video and say, you know, maybe there are use cases that I haven't been doing, I haven't been using video for, that maybe now I can look at and say, you know what, I can afford it now, instead of waiting for the annual conference and trying to get everything with a videographer there for the day and distributing that cost over multiple shoots, which is still very relevant, but now it allows you to look at every day in the calendar as a potential for capturing great content. So Randall, why don't you share some of the use cases that you've seen over the years where you feel virtual videographer would shine? Randall, did we lose your audio?
I was on mute.
Oh, there we go.
Yeah, you touched on it earlier. It's about decreasing or eliminating those barriers. Personally, I've been to several association events and conferences, and by the way, we should say that this virtual videographer, is it intended to replace your live event videography services? No, not necessarily. This is a complement. This is an alternative and another option. So if you had, say, a 2-day, 3-day, or even a 5-day shoot during your event, hey, there's lots of value to being there in person. But I've also experienced those times where, you know, we approach an event with a plan, and perhaps that association already knows a list right down to the time and date and location of where they want to capture an interview with their CEO or their board member or their most engaged members. But what if those people, for whatever reason, because of you know, things that they couldn't foresee or control, what if they couldn't make it to your event? Or this is something that happened to me. We were working on a campaign that was highly dependent and reliant on the keynote speaker, but he had to be taken away for personal urgencies and matters. And so how do you pivot? And how do you react to those situations? We see this as being one of those options. And, you know, beyond that, it also just makes the world a smaller place, right? And allows you to react quickly. And so if you look at, there's so many sectors and industries out there that are impacted so heavily by government and some new regulation or legislation. How do you pivot and react to that news and provide commentary and insights to your community? And personally, I come from the world of news broadcast, and so I got to see the value of immediacy and reacting and sharing and collectively having that conversation with the community. And so this enables you to pivot, react, and also brings you greater access that you did not have before.
And I personally am a real big fan of not just member testimonials, which are important, but member-to-member knowledge sharing. It's a unique opportunity for associations to listen to those great stories that members have and economically capture them and reproduce and share those through your community. And is one of the best. Our clients that follow that model really have tremendous impact, because every association loves to learn from peers.
Makes me think, Dan, of just the trend in audio and podcasting. And, you know, with this solution and this concept, your moderator or host can be based in California, and you could have 2, 3, maybe even multiple guests based all over the world, and you can capture that in this virtual environment.
Absolutely. And we're going to talk a little bit about multimedia in a moment. So the benefits of virtual videographers is it now makes something that wasn't affordable, and ideally, and because of the time, sensitivity of and rate of change, but also the time that we as association people have available, it actually reduces the amount of time for a shoot. instead of a half day, now you can do things in 30 minutes to 45 minutes so quickly. And this, we hope, will help you affordably increase your volume of video. And when you do that, we've seen and we've measured it with our clients, not only does it increase your reach and help you really improve that engagement, which drive that, the 3 R's as we call it, retention, recruitment, and revenue, but it also helps you educate those members, helps you find new members, and it helps that value proposition so that my association is not just relevant at conference time, they're relevant every month. And with volume of content comes the ability for you to monetize that content. It could be partner feature spotlights, maybe it's sponsored content or sponsorship of your content or advertising, and maybe some of it's pay-per-view because it's got continued ed credit or accreditation. And we've seen as you pick up the volume, just like it was in a magazine of yesterday, in video, it allows you to monetize. So now we're working the cost structure 2 ways. A, we're driving down the cost and complexity of video. And with that volume comes the ability to monetize. And now you can turn video from a cost center into a profit center. So let's summarize. Virtual Videographer is a turnkey service. And although lowering cost is great, I think the reduced risk is just as important. It allows us to be collaborators, to be on the shoot, to make sure we're on point, and maximize the use of every video shoot you do with the right people validating that we got the right content for our need before it goes to post-production. It's an opportunity to think of those one-day conferences or those chapter events or those news items, that recency or advocacy issues that we knew we couldn't get before and say, you know what, now we can. Now we have the time and the money to do it. It's a scalable solution for small projects located anywhere, but also it can allow you to do up to 4 people at once. And so although it won't replace traditional recording at some of your events, it can be a great complement. And as Randall was sharing, you know, when you start with video, it's easy to make audio. So imagine if we were interviewing our CO for a quarterly update, or your CO, and we did a 15-minute interview. Well, why not release the interview as a podcast? Maybe the video that gets produced from that is only 3 minutes. And maybe from that we do a blog post or an article because audio can create text. And from that, maybe we do a 30-second social media video. And maybe we include closed captioning, or we translate that into multiple languages depending on your market set and need. And so from one video, we can actually create multiple, up to 10 or 12 assets. When you start with video, it also lowers the cost of going multimedia. And now you can organize this workflow. So social media is pulling to micro-learning, and micro-learning is pushing into accredited learning. And all the way along, your brand and your relevancy continues to go up, which helps not only engage existing members, but helps you find new. So that's it. We have the Q&A set up. We'll turn it over to Emily for questions. And Emily, if you could host those questions for us, we would love to stay on. I think we are still a little early. We have at least 5 minutes available for questions. Thank you very much.
We do. Thank you so much for sharing that information. We have quite a few questions that have come through. So let me start with a couple around equipment. So can you speak to equipment and what is compatible?
Actually, I even have a slide for that.
Good, we have a couple of those.
Approved devices, anything over an iPhone 7 is capable of doing both 4K and 1080p. So, and then the iPad models, the iPad Pro and up. And then for laptops, we didn't put the list on here because there's just such a variety. What you really have to look at is the capability of the camera on the laptops. They are usually behind the phone. So our preference is the phone is smaller, lighter, and usually more advanced in the cameras. So we look to the phone first, the iPad second, and the laptop third.
And I should add there, what you're not seeing on this list yet are Android devices. That is something we're building on. We just wanted to target iPhones for all the reasons that Dan had mentioned. But no doubt that is going to be in our future phase release.
Yeah, and although we can ship an iPhone with a lav mic and a stand and a lighting kit to anywhere we need to ship it, most people in the office have an iPhone, so you could just download the app and you're ready to go.
Excellent. A couple other questions that I think you touched on during the presentation, but just to reiterate in case there's additional questions, is on using online meeting apps to interview members in other countries. They have an issue with internet connections and how that can be problematic. So can you discuss how virtual videographer would work in this case? And would you need to ship equipment to the interviewees, since that can get expensive?
That's a great question. And you know, we enjoy in North America such wonderful internet, but there are lots of places. I just came back from Africa where it's more difficult. And one of the reasons that this is so powerful is it works offline. We are online to talk, right? So that they can hear us and we can hear them and the collaborators can join, but that's low level, just like we're on right now with Zoom. But when we're recording, both the audio and the video, it is storing it inside the phone or the iPad or the laptop at high quality. And then only after we're finished does it push it through the internet, where speed is no issue now. If it takes a minute, if it takes 5 minutes, if it takes 10 minutes, who cares? It's uploading it to the cloud in high quality where we can pull it down. So we've taken the internet out of the equation in making high quality video. Although you still do need a connection, but it could be as low as 3G, just for us to be able to talk to each other and see each other.
Mm-hmm. And when would you suggest using virtual videographer instead of traditional video recordings? So thinking about things like at conference presentations was one question, and how the video quality compares with the typical AV team.
Great question. Randall?
Yeah, we touched on this earlier, and you know, if you've got a 2-day, 3-day, or more day shoot, I think that's where the value of having somebody there in person, live at your event, probably makes sense. I think the sweet spot for this solution are the things that are not easy to predict or not easy to plan for. And you know, Dan mentioned it earlier. Based on the market that you're operating in, there's some markets that say, no, it has to be a full day, and that's the lowest increment. That's the smallest increment. Or maybe even a half day, which is 4 or 5 hours in some cases. But what if the piece of content that you're looking for is a 5-10 minute interview? Then, you know, probably this might be a better match because of its agility, because of its ability to give you immediacy, I should say.
I would agree. When it's a small event, a specific need where it's under 2 or 3 hours, that's where this shines.
Excellent. I think we have time for maybe 2 more quick questions from our list here. How much notice do you need to conduct a filming with a virtual videographer?
Typically 1 week to, you know, ideally 2 weeks, just in case it's very busy. But within 1 week, we can have the planning meeting. We can schedule the shoot if necessary, ship any complimentary gear to your location of choice. It's a small package, so it can go FedEx, and then conduct the shoot. Same moments after the shoot, we have the content. And if we're also doing the editing for you, we're either sharing it with whoever's doing the editing, or if we're doing the editing on your behalf, we can start on it immediately. So we can turn things very, very quick.
Excellent. And one more, how would this work for live streaming?
This is not a live streaming solution. We have a live streaming solution, but this is not it. This is really designed to capture footage that would be going into post-production. Our live streaming solution, you require 3 components really. 1, a device that's filming. 2, a laptop that's connected to the internet that has very high speed and is dedicated. That line is dedicated to you. I guess there's really a 4th thing. The 4th thing you need is an environment. That's where our association TV solutions come in, so that the live stream can be on your brand, on your website. And if you want gated or not gated, or with sponsorship or without sponsorship, and then downstream turn into on demand after the fact.
So Randall, Dan, thanks for taking the time to share this solution with us. For those of you on